Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. All right. I wish I could really tell where my audio levels are, but I think this is good based on other videos that I've watched of myself streaming recently. I've added a lot to this project in the last few days. One of those features in Blueprints being the ability to switch an object, have physics enabled on the object so that I can drag it around on a linear plane, on a single plane. But also, well, I haven't integrated this yet, but next is to be able to switch the object's materials on click. So I've got to figure out exactly how I want to implement that part of this. As of now, I've got it at least set up to where I can manipulate this chair. But before I do, what I want to add, or what I want to kind of demonstrate, I guess, let me just take one of these out. And for the time being, I'll just preview this. The other thing that I've added is a real clock here and here. I will add this one at some point, but I also want to be able to bring in data for the weather and the date. And I want the icon to change dynamically as well. And I want this to also be adjusted with the time of day inside of the ultra dynamic sky, as well as the weather. So a lot of APIs that I need to add in order to accomplish that. There's some websites out there that probably provide real-time data based on my location. And I need to start learning how to integrate that. I'm going to go to ChatGPT and see how much of that I can learn directly inside of ChatGPT to see if they're going to give me the prompt for the blueprints. But yesterday, I figured out the blueprint to this. I'll demonstrate it. So first thing I can do is I can walk around the object, and you'll notice there are some physics applied. I can manipulate the object, move it around. I can right click and drag to change its location, and then it only moves on the X and Y axis. Z axis is locked. And how I set this up, a little bit complicated. Once it was done, I actually realized it was a lot more simple, and the problem was most of the YouTube videos that I've found on how to do this, they're not thinking outside of the box. They're just kind of copycat, creating the same tutorial that you are most likely to find when searching how to create a swappable object. They kept it real basic. But for me, I wanted to be able to move the object around in my scene, hold down a key, and then like while I have the object selected and held, I want to hold down a key and be able to rotate that object. So wherever I click on the chair is going to be kind of the point in which I'll be able to manipulate the object. So if I click like over here to the far left, and it'll rotate around that point, right? So I can center the pivot, and all I have to do in order to set my player's physics handle for this object to the pivot point of the object would be to add a tag. And I think the tag that I used is inspect. And I'll show you a quick example of that. But I can rotate this and then move it around the scene. And I think, did I delete an object that was here before? Let's check. We'll go to player collision. Oh no, that looks like it got up. And it's possibly because the other objects are colliding. That's what it is. So, yeah. in a normal scenario, this would be a selection of bar stools that are approximately the same size, scale, and collision mesh. So if I hit play again, I walk up to this. You see I'm not colliding with anything. I can walk around the mesh. But if I click it, it's going to switch to a new mesh. If I click it again, I'm just doing this for testing purposes. It now switches to a lounge chair and then to a table, because these are the meshes that I have in the scene. I didn't have enough of the same type of mesh in the scene to test this with 5 bar stools, for example. So I just took meshes I already had it and brought them in here. But here's the deal. Once that mesh is activated, the collision is also activated. I can still slide it around. I can still rotate it. So let's say you want to place furniture around your scene. Let's click it. So it's possible. Okay, no, I can go ahead and bring it over here. But yeah, you can place these meshes around your scene and kind of like do like a sim like staging. But left click would be to switch the mesh. Right click and drag would be to move the mesh. And then right click and, holding a key on the keyboard would be to rotate the mesh. So I thought that was a really cool addition. The next thing that I would need to do is potentially add a few, like a small object to the side that I could click, or add another keybind to then be able to change the materials on the object. So I want all these interactions to exist inside of one blueprint. And the blueprint, Control E, looks a little bit like this. Let me see if I can get it pulled up. And we're going to pull it up on the second screen. Let's go main view. All right, a little bit complicated, but the first thing that I did was I added a interaction or an interface inside of my content browser. I've created a few interfaces. There is device status, there's grab, and then there's interaction. Interaction is the interface that allows me to walk up to an object, click on its mesh, and change, the state of, let's say, visibility of like a light source, or the type of material that's on a particular channel of the mesh, etc. BPI grab is my ability to go and click on an object and move it around in the scene. And then inside of grab, I also have throw. So if I can give individual objects a different like throw parameter, to where like if it's a basketball, I can set the parameter much higher and the character will toss the ball. If it's a small object like a pillow, I can set the parameter lower and he might just kind of toss it a little closer in proximity. And then device status, that just lets me know whether or not a device is on or off. And this one I use grab and interaction because I want to be able to click on the object to interact with it without having to have a collision box to determine that the character is close enough to the mesh for the interaction to be enabled. So instead of using a collision box to detect whether the character is close enough to be able to interact with the object, I just use a blueprint interface, and that means I'm using a line trace to see how close the player is to the object. And when I get close enough to the object, a small minimal finger pointing icon pops up on the HUD to let the user know that you can interact with this object just by clicking it. Some objects you can click and drag and move around and pick up, which you use the right mouse button or some button bound to my controller. I don't remember exactly which one. So I'm going to demonstrate that, but let me just show you this blueprint real quick. So in the class settings, I went and added the interfaces grab and interact. I'll make a video on how to set those up at some point. I don't think I need begin cursor over event. So let me compile and save and then test this real quick just to make sure.
Wait, I'm the Lorax, guardian of the forest.
Okay, yeah.
Wait a minute, I just saw something.
And then I bind the interact to this blueprint with a multi-gate. So I call for a custom event interact, which is from the interface. So once I go to class settings and I bring in those interfaces, I can double click on interact to bring it into the event graph, connect that to a multi-gate. Output number 1 is going to connect to set the visibility of the first mesh in my scene or in my blueprint. So I have one mesh. Nested under that mesh is a second, third, fourth, and fifth mesh. And I named those mesh 1 through 5, mesh 1 being the parent. And then I have a physics constraint that's tied to mesh 1. Mesh 1 is going to have physics enabled, but it's going to be locked on the z-axis so that it can't go up or down. It's going to be locked on the X and Y rotation so that I can only rotate it on the z-axis. Meshes 3 through 5 are going to have physics disabled. They still have mass. I did add linear damping of 2 and angular damping so that it can be harder to drag and move this item, and so that it's not sliding on the floor like a car or a ball. And I think it gets complicated. I'm gonna have to look through this, but I should have all the physics to be set to block. Inside of the blueprint, the multi-gate is going to connect its first output to set the visibility of mesh 1 to hidden, and then set the collision to physics only, because we still want physics on the first mesh, but then set mesh 2 to have a new visibility, which means visible, but collision is going to then be enabled for that object. Before I do that though, on event begin play, I want to set collision enabled to no collision for mesh 2 through 5, or however many other objects you would want to have in this blueprint. So like if you were a furniture store or an appliance dealer, whatever, appliance manufacturer, and you have 13 different stoves that you want your player to be able to click through, you can put all those 13 stoves in here, and basically you will have 14 of those stoves on begin play to disable the collision. In the event that they're, in my case, I did that because in one of those meshes
I'm the Lorax,
is a lounge
guardian
chair.
of the forest. I speak to
So
the
I don't
tree.
want to collide with this if it's
So you're
hidden
telling
by
me
default.
you just didn't see me
Another one of those
magically
meshes
clear out of that
is
stuff with all
a
the lightning
table
thunder
and a
stuff.
couch.
You didn't see any of that?
So
Oh,
on
that
begin
sounds
play,
amazing.
I
Can I
want
see some of
that
that?
lounge chair
Yeah, I
and
can
that
show you.
couch to
That's
not
not
have
how
a
it
collision, so that I can walk around the initial mesh. And then when I hide that mesh or click on it, I want any other mesh that populates to actually have its collision enabled dynamically. So that's why after set mesh visibility to off for mesh number 1, I set the collision to stay enabled, but I set the visibility to the next mesh number 2 to visible with its collision enabled, because by default when you start the game it disables the collision of all the other meshes. You only need physics on the first item because the other items are children of mesh 1. That means any movement that happens in the physics asset for that mesh, even though it's hidden, the children are going to follow the parent, but the parent also follows the child. So once collision is enabled on the children, even though they don't have physics enabled, you can click on the children and manipulate the physics of the primary asset that they are attached to. That's what allows you to drag it around the scene even when the first mesh is hidden. So that's important. So on out number 1, which is the second time I click on this mesh, we want to hide mesh 2 and then show mesh 3. But for mesh 2, once it's hidden, we want to set that to no collision. Keep in mind, mesh number 1 is always going to have physics only enabled. So by default, it's physics and query. But then once we disable mesh number 1 and enable mesh number 2, mesh number 2 has collision enabled with query and physics. Then we disable mesh 2 on the next click and enable mesh 3. No collision on mesh 2, collision with query and physics on mesh 3. And we repeat the process. Disable mesh 3, disable collision, enable mesh 4, enable collision. Disable mesh 4, enable mesh 5, disable mesh 5, enable mesh 1. Inside of our multi-gate, we have it set to loop so that we can go back to re-enable mesh 1, and physics is already enabled. And we technically don't need any query because we've got all the other meshes, like their physics, their collisions kind of are parented to this main mesh. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm trying to explain this the best that I can, because although I just recently learned how to do this with my doors and the doors perform the same way, I needed to think outside of the box for, again, I've watched like 30 tutorials on this and none of them told me how to do any of this. So I had to think, okay, how can this be practical to where I can not only switch the object, but enable collision and disable collision per object in the event that their physical attributes kind of differ from each other. Like, let's say I want to slide a chair under a table and then switch it to a bar stool. That bar stool should not be able to also slide under the table, which has its own collision. So each individual item gets its collisions from, let's go into one of the static mesh editors, from the convex decomposition. So I will increase the hole count, the hole verts, and the hole precision to their maximum and then hit apply. This will generate a custom collision that is close enough to a complex collision without it being complex, because you cannot enable physics on a complex collision. So as opposed to this being a box or capsule collision and trying to custom design the collision mesh, or using a mesh that's way too dense with triangles, packed with triangles, the convex collision is the best route to quickly get a collision that will allow you to have this object interact with your scene appropriately, because we want collisions on pretty much everything, and the collision is what allows you to click the object and interact with it. Without a collision, you can't click on the object, because the line trace is searching for a collision, not just a face or a triangle or a material, which I think you can do a line trace towards a material in a mesh, but it's the collision of the mesh that you click on. So if this was a box collision, like, let me show you, if I go to collision, add box simplified, and now you see there's a box around the entire object, I would be able to click on the box and then move the whole box around the scene. It's not that you're clicking on the chair, you're clicking on the collision. So with that in mind, I created a convex collision that roughly estimates, you know, the physical presence of the object. And I do that for every single mesh, especially ones that I want to manipulate in my scene. Now that's the bulk of the setup. Everything else kind of exists inside of the third person character or first person character blueprint. Under the physics constraint, you'll notice that I have under component name 1 is set to mesh 1, so that's the parent mesh. With something like doors that are parented to a structure, which is how I set up the blueprint for my buildings, you would put the name of the door from inside of the blueprint in the component name 1, and then for component name 2, you would put the name of the structure. If you're doing something like a wheeled vehicle that you don't plan on driving, but you want the wheels to function, you would do this for every wheel. You would have the name of the wheel in component name 1 and the name of the vehicle or body in component name 2. And I'll show you an example of that in a moment. For this single physics constraint, I'm surprised that I actually have this set up this way. Collision is not disabled, but each item being hidden and collision being disabled in the blueprint allows for me to have all these items overlap each other without like the blueprint glitching out. Because by default, all the items have a collision together, and when they have a collision and physics, they will try to break apart and fly all over the scene. So in the blueprint, that's why we disable collision, set it to no collision on begin play, so that only the first mesh has collision. That way we don't need disable collision and parent dominates activated in the physics constraint. I disabled projection. I don't really even know what that means. I set the linear limits to free on X and Y. We want this to be able to move side to side, forwards and backwards. But we locked the Z motion. We don't want anybody to be able to pick this up, right, off of the floor. So therefore, technically you can slide it through rooms unless there's a threshold at the foot of a door that has a collision on it. If it doesn't have a collision, you can still slide it through. So I have a threshold that goes out to the garage and a threshold that goes out to the backyard, and then a staircase. So you can never slide this thing out of the house, you know. And maybe there's some carpet in some rooms that's just slightly higher than the foundation, which in this project the foundation is like exposed and treated concrete, and then in some of the rooms there's carpet. And I do believe that I have a simplified convex collision on the carpet, if not a box collision. I don't know. So Z motion is limited. You can't pick the item up. And then swing motion is free. That means the swing 1 motion means that you can spin this item around in a 360 unlimitedly. You can turn this as many times as you want. The twist motion is locked, and the swing 2 motion is locked. I don't have any offsets because this is not like a door where it only swings a certain amount. No swing limits are enabled. No twist limits are enabled. The linear motor, I did set the velocity damping to 10 to see if I can get this to like slide slower and come to a stop if you were to let it go, so it doesn't like glide across the floor by accident. But I think that's also covered inside of the mesh. So if I click on mesh 1, you'll see that I have let's see, I've got, here we go, linear damping set to 10 and angular damping set to 2. I want to be able to spin it a little easier than I can move it around the room. Mass is set to 1,000 kilograms, which I don't think the actual weight of the object matters in this case, since we're not trying to simulate physics or run any simulations to stress test a chair, for example, to see how it's going to break or how heavy it is. But having a higher mass allows for you to slow down the movement and simulate some more realistic movements, right? So if I go into the project, I'll show more of my physics constraints in action. Something to also think about too, and I mentioned this in another video, under project settings, stuttering here, under, I want to say it might be physics, and under frame rate, I have enabled substepping, and I set my max substep delta to 0.01. I don't know what the default is. And max substeps to 16. That kind of, I think that helps the physics asset detect surfaces more frequently across more frames, if I'm not mistaken. So if, let's say, an object, a tiny object like a golf ball, falls down at a very fast frame rate, but the physics asset is not detecting surfaces at as fast a pace as the frame rate is going, it's possible that that small object will clip through a collision mesh before it checks to see if if it's impacting or interacting with the surface, which means small objects are more likely to like wiggle and jitter on the ground or clip through a surface. So this increases the number of times that a physics item will check for surfaces around it, and it will allow for more accurate rendering of the simulation. It's kind of like, thinking about like it's more ray tracing. So I'll go into the scene and hit play. I already showcased the chair. So left click changes the object. All right, as you can see, if I were to get on top of this couch and then click it, I would fall because the collision gets disabled. I can right click and drag. Looks like we're glitching, stuck on something. Accidentally clicked. So it's gonna interact with, it's gonna like impact other things if I'm not careful. But now I can drag this and move it into place, and then I can hold R on the keyboard to rotate it, and then I'll let R go, and then I'll move it into place. Now this interaction button is the left click, which allows me to turn TVs on and off, turn the fireplace on and off, or control individual light switches. So that was for the fan. This is for the other lights in this room. And this one's for the kitchen. I changed the binding for physics objects to be the right mouse button so that I can go up to a door and pull it open. Anywhere that I grab on the door is going to allow me to swing it on its physics constraint, which is the center of the hinges. So let's go look at those hinges. So I've got every door set up this way. And the doors cannot go open past their constraint points. So not only can I grab the door to pull it open, which is what I needed to do for doors that had to open towards the character, but I can simply use my body to walk through a door. But if you get stuck in a room, you need to be able to open it. So I'm going to use my body, and then I can go in and go behind the door and even push it closed with my body. Then left click to turn on and off lights. And then as you can see, I added this emissive material to the top of the light switch so that you'd be able to find your way around dark rooms when the lights are shut off. That way you could find where to position your character's camera to be able to actually interact with that light switch. For example, if I go on this side, I can see the crack in the door, but I cannot see the light switch, and I'm going to be like searching for it. Well, I mean, I can if I get a little bit of light to shine on it, but when I walk back in this direction, because I switched the light off, easier for me to interact, find that light switch and click on it. I can't click on the box. I have to click on the switch. And the blueprint is designed to where each switch is its own blueprint instance. The box exists separately outside of the switch. So since the box is not a part of the blueprint, you can't click on the box to interact with the light. This is meant to be realistic. You have to actually click on the light. So let's open this door, take a look around. Got a light in there. When I activate the interaction, it's going to change the emissive mesh texture material to a non-emissive material, but it's also going to disable the light source, which is a point light that sits like right underneath it. So I click on the interaction, boom, that emissive material goes onto the material channel for the light switch, and then it shuts the light source off, but also switches the emissive texture. So it does two things at once. Same thing is true for TVs. If you click on the TV, which is made of three parts, there's the body of the TV, there's the screen, which is a separate mesh, and then there's actually the TV and the screen I think are combined now, merged, but the glass in front of the screen is a separate mesh. That way I can enable nanite on these objects and keep the glass separated. But I can click on this, turn the TV off, and then we're going to have that realistic, high quality reflection of the environment.
This is talking about the dedication.
And then spatial audio is integrated in that blueprint. Of course, I have sounds for some of these items, but as you can see, the light is off. I don't like how dark that is. I'm going to change that material out at another date, but easy flop switch. Fan is kind of operating on its own. So even if I switch the light on or off, the fan is going to continue to run. And each fan speed can be controlled individually inside of the details panel. The next thing I need to add is to add physics to this chair and a physics constraint to the windows so that I can open and close the windows by clicking and dragging. I also want to do the same for the toilet seat, for the faucets, and I'll keep the rest of everything else as is. One of these switches is going to control the bathroom fan. But right now, what you can hear is the vent. So this is the air conditioning from the vent, or the air coming from the air conditioner through the vent. Here's that grab feature. You can grab an item. And I'll show you in a minute how I set up the rotation. I have to kind of do some trickery. But if I middle mouse button while I have it grabbed, I can zoom in. I can hold R on the keyboard to now rotate this and inspect it. Let go of the middle mouse button and I'll breathe out. Press it again, you'll breathe in. I wanted to kind of simulate that this isn't a like someone holding a camera simulation. This is more of, you know, let's say you're about to snipe in a video game and you're trying to focus in on something, so you like hold your breath so that you're not shaking so much. It's kind of the idea I had behind that. But once I let go of the R button, I can now move my body around again. And I think you can do both when you're using the controller. And I can drop the object and pick up other objects. So I wanted this to be fully interactable. And I've built all these systems from scratch. There's a lot to do. Oh, missed. But the goal is to deploy this project to the Fab Marketplace, to Patreon, to be able to give people the ability to download and dissect it. And then also do tutorials. But before I did tutorials, I want to know that what I'm creating is like worthy of people either paying for the tutorial or, you know, of interest for people who want to learn. I also need to add the ability to grab the faucet and turn it, and then the ability to open the oven, dishwasher, and microwave. And I'm using this to propose to companies that manufacture these appliances and stuff to say, hey, I want to do a virtual showcase of your products and be able to create these products that people can actually maybe use in their architectural visualizations or even in video games. I don't know. But I took this refrigerator mesh, and there's no animations. It's all dynamic physics. The physics bodies, the door, for example, the doors are separate meshes. The refrigerator is one mesh. And I set up the collision in a way that allows me to position different collision boxes to control a player's ability to then take an object and drop it, you know, on one of the shelves. So I plan to populate this refrigerator with some items at some point and then put a light in there. But this is just an example of how I want to set up the cabinets. All right, I want to be able to do the cabinets the exact same way. So you can actually grab and take a look at things. For the clocks, they are set up to where, you know, it's showing the real time. And I'm not sure how long, but it's 1:39 p.m. here. It took me an entire day to figure out how to set this clock up. And I'm going to let the screen sit here so that it can change to 140. I set it up as a HUD in a player UI, and I set each appliance up as its own blueprint. And on the interaction event, the appliance, if it has an emissive, will switch between an emissive texture and a non-emissive. So as you can see, it changed to 140. So it's the real world time on both the oven and the microwave. Next, I'm going to add that to this Echo Show, which is currently sliding through images. But it has a baked in clock, which is clearly wrong. So I spent all day figuring out how to do this with the real world time. And I got it down to where it could give me like actual seconds inside of its display. But click on the light. Let me actually show you this. This light switch is the master for the entire project. So it turns off all light sources, switches all materials for those lights, meshes, and turns off all TVs and any appliance that might be activated. So if I turn this light back on, let's turn this switch off. I would then have to go to that item and then click it twice. So, but, you know, we've got global illumination. It's looking good. This gives me some dynamic time of day so I can navigate through the scene. And if I want to cut all the lights off at once and see what the lighting looks like, I can easily go do that. Now I can open this and turn the light on in here. Or actually, I got to click it twice. The other logic that I need to figure out is how to do two-way switches. So if you were to turn a light, which light is that? The bedroom light. And I think it's the middle one. Oh, yeah. There we go. So if I were to go here to turn that back on, I should be able to switch this down and have the light come on. But right now it only works if I switch it up. So there's no two-way logic yet. That one I'm not really ready to tackle. I don't know what I did to figure this out, but at first I couldn't see my reflection in the mirrors. Might have just been a setting, some setting that I had disabled in the project settings that I eventually like switched and it started working. So I spent the day trying to figure that out too. But let's turn this light back on and have a look here. I've yet to go and get the mesh that I need for the hot water heater or the air conditioner. So right now I just have a box there as a placeholder. And as you can see that we have real geometry here on the vent. This is a digital twin of our entire basement. If I move up close to it, you can hear the AC in there on, but you can also hear a little bit of the wind that's being sucked into the return under the door. So it's two different audio MP3s or audio sources that are spatialized here to kind of give that immersion. But in every single room, I really need to adjust the attenuation of this, but you can hear the air coming out of the vents when the AC is on. So if I zoom into this, you can see that it's set to fan on. And I probably need to adjust the AO, ambient occlusion. But if I left click on this, it'll switch that material to where the text says auto. Let's turn it back on. But now there's no sound coming from the AC closet, and there's no sound coming out of the vents. Every vent in the house is connected. So I'm not sure how well you can hear that. Kind of exaggerated it for the purpose of like just being able to hear it in the game. Again, TVs have spatial audio.
The last city.
And if I go behind a complex collision, let's turn this off. You can hear that it's muffled. Same thing is true if I close this door.
That's the Mayan state.
See if another video plays in a minute. So if I walk through the door, you'll hear it much clearer. One of the last things I did add was this light source. I still have a lot to model to get this fixture complete because there's not actually any light fixed like bulbs in there. I've just not gotten around to it, but I did this live on SketchUp the other day, modeled this whole fixture from picture references of the actual sconce that's on our staircase leading up to the main floor. And I don't know what my plans are here, but I might add the door and finish out the staircase here, and just keep that door locked and unable to be interacted with because I've not completed I've not designed anything for the main floor, but this is kind of like the basement that goes out to the golf course. Let me think of what else I want to add. I want to be able to add cabinet interactions to where you can open and close the cabinets. As well as convert all of these individual letters to physics assets so that you can drag them around within the limitations of the refrigerator and be able to rotate and spell your own words and do whatever with, right? So, because I want the whole project to be like this big showcase of what's possible for architectural visualization and immersion. With that, if you grab a letter, I want it to be able to have the character say the letter sounds. So in this, I want to build a bunch of mini games because my 5-year-old who lives here and is learning to play video games really well, a lot better than I did when I was 5, might be able to pick this up if I were to export a version of this on the computer and go through the scene and be able to do the things that we do every day, like practice letter sounds and spell things out on the refrigerator.
I can't get through.
So these are all physical meshes. I want to do the same thing in here to where you can click on each letter and have a letter sound, you know, have the player character read a letter sound. I don't have this set up to be interactable, but it is a physics object. So the possibilities are endless. I haven't gotten so far as to do drawers yet on, like, you know, nightstands and whatever. These chairs don't have any physics. Skateboard does, though. But I want you to be able to, you know, open up the grill. Take the skateboard for a spin. Shoot a basketball. So I'll put this little ramp here. Let's press R and rotate. And let's put this down on the floor. Oh, if I put it under myself, I'm going to jump up on it. All right, drop it, and let's just get on it. That's kind of cool. Like, I'm no game developer, but I think outside of the box I can figure some stuff out. And I think this is like seeing his leg kind of move with the changes of the terrain. That tells me that, like, I'm kind of on the right track with this whole thing. I just need to learn how to bind character bones to different objects so they can be able to actually grab doorknobs and use the physical attributes of the first person character to have those physics constraints be tied to their body. So this is another physics item. If I were to zoom in to this, I guess you can't really see it based on where I picked it up, huh? If you pick it up, it's going to toss you in the air, which is kind of cool. But as you can see, those wheels are spinning. Those are some good bearings. All right. Let's see what else we got. As you can see, the outside of the house is not finished. This was never meant to go outward to where the character could leave the house, but because it's a work in progress and it's going to be kind of a demo to showcase some features, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here in this house, I'm not going to design the other 2 stories. I may throw some windows up there to give the illusion that the house is fully designed, but keep it pretty much bare up in the other floors. This was the other example of a physics asset that has the wheel parented to the body of this cart. It's one wheel duplicated 4 times, or, you know, yeah, replicated. Basically one static mesh wheel, and then I move that wheel to different parts of the cart. Instead of, a lot of people make the mistake of, you know, having 4 individual wheel meshes when all the wheels are designed the same, right? So, and to attempt to do a little bit of optimization, I had those things in mind. I duplicated the wheel, and then set it up as a physics item where the wheel was attached to the cart, but also the ball is a physics item.
Wait, I'm the Lorax.
shout out to like this accurate door design to where the color is like off white compared to everything else. That was very intentional because that's how it actually is in our garage. Pick this ball up. Let's get into some sun. Let's go like right here. Zoom in. Hold down R to rotate. And you can see that that has a lot of detail on it. Every little dot. This is using tessellation, which means I have to have nanite enabled to use this displacement of those little dots on this ball. But if you are looking close enough, you'll see there are actually dots on every little piece of this, every little face, except where like the Spalding logo is. Let's see if I can maybe turn around. That might look a little bit better. There we go. So as you can see where the SneakerCon logo is and the Spalding logo, it's flat. And then everywhere else it has the little grip balls, the little grip things. But yeah, I'm trying to pay close attention to details so that when I showcase this project or put it on the internet for people to download, they can get some ideas and kind of think outside the box of how they can create more interactive visualizations. So I can throw this and it's going to respond accordingly. And it has some multipliers to the velocity. If I were to jump and let it go, it'll go a little further. So look at that. Took me a while to like figure out what settings I needed to change to make it as realistic as possible. And once I figured it out, it actually like it wasn't as complicated as I thought it was gonna be. This is a real play set from Little Tykes. I also sent them a message too. I'm like, hey, look what I look what I did in Unreal Engine. You don't want this? You don't want more of this? You can. This is a pack called More Doors. Let's see. R is E. I do plan on replacing the meshes, and I think there's no collision on this. I do plan on replacing the meshes for the garage door. But if I were to close it and walk through it, it'll stop itself. And then I can go here. Also close it.
Oh, I'm gonna eat.
So really cool. I think if there's anything that I missed. Not really. But, you know, being able to have this experience where you can basically like have live a whole life like The Sims or Enzoi, except I wanted to create a digital twin of our basement and have a very photorealistic experience. There are more staging items that I need to bring in here. I got a rug here and here, a large rug under the bed in the bedroom. There is a rug here under the two couches. The closets I want to populate with like vacuums, cleaning supplies, whatnot. Legos, I use physics to drop the Legos on the Lego table. That's all geometry. I like geometry. I prefer geometry over PBR materials and like decals. So that's all geometry. I use Dash to drop those, and I really could have just used physics built in to drop them, then apply the changes, then disable physics, and each item would have remained like an individual Lego. But what the plan was to get a variety of different types of like Legos, real Legos and little minifigs and everything, and drop them in buckets. But I kept it simple as to not waste so much time on that. Outlets are real designs, like real dimensions. And trim. Like I actually went through the entire house and had a look at how the trim was designed and redesigned all the trim. So I got to fix that because I did go and I combined all the faces. I merged all the faces, and it gives this appearance that the top face and the back face are, since they're merged together, gives the appearance that it's curved into the wall. So it has that little black line there because I made a grave mistake. And I think one of the last things I modeled was the tub.
Can't turn this thing off.
What are you trying to turn off, buddy? Figured it out? I gotta figure out. Oh, that's got an ambient occlusion material on the pillow where the pillows are supposed to be. So that it appears to be much darker under there. But I moved him. I forgot that I enabled that AO texture on that sheet. Let me think. Is there anything else? Happy to answer any questions while we're on this stream. But I think carpet, that's its own separate mesh and material. And this carpet on the stairs actually uses displacement to get that real 3D carpety look that I've been like so anxious to try to figure out how to do. And I'm very, very much satisfied with the outcome of the carpet on the stairs. Like how it responds to the light is so accurate. And that's ultimately what we're going for here, was to have a fully responsive dynamic scene. Uh-oh. I have an issue. This is actually supposed to show a 0 in place of where, when it's less than 10 decimals, or when it's less than 10, it should show 2 and append a 0. Oh, okay. That's the problem. Doesn't append the number 0. So I need to figure that out. So let me see if I can do that while we're live. Okay. That is actually going to be in the widget. So let's go content browser, HUD, clock, and WBP clock. I think. Let's go to graph and append 0 for the minute. If less than 10, pick A. And A is to append a 0. There also should be a way to set the minimum number of, let's see, minimum, I don't know. I got to figure that out. But there's got to be a way that I can, well, it's supposed to append 0 by default, but for whatever reason, it's not doing that under the minute. So pick A, append. Maybe this is supposed to go, oh no. What happens if I do it here? Okay, let's simulate.
I'm the Warrax.
Oh, nope, that puts it
Guardian of the
afterwards.
forest. I speak for the trees.
It's 203, not 230.
So you
So I did have it set up right. I wonder what happened there.
I'm the Warrax. Guardian of the forest. I speak for the trees.
Odd. Let's see here. Okay, append if less than 10, pick A. Okay, and less than 10, append 0. And if not, pick B. Minute. Yeah. We'll figure that out another time.
That means they're going to play.
Nope.
Can I have one of these, please?
Maybe after we eat some more food, okay. Right now I don't have any cabinet shelving inside of the cabinets. But the cabinets are fully designed. And the other thing that I needed to fix, here's an example of the problem. So let's say I turn off the main structure. If I go into modeling mode and then polygroup edit, you'll see, well, maybe not for this one. This one should be fixed actually. For this one, that the entire object is basically combined. Here's a better example. The entire board is one polygroup. What I need to do is decompose it. So let's go to decompose, and that separates all the faces. I'm gonna alt click and deselect this back face and do the same thing from the top. Can't tell if that's one mesh, one face. No, it's not one face. So deselect the top. And I should deselect the bottom too. So this is going to be like a very tedious thing to do for all the baseboards and quarter round and trim and all that. I deselect everything that I don't want connected. We go and merge. And now everything on the front face is basically connected, and it shows it all as like a rounded, smoothed surface. Let's grab the top two pieces. Usually this will triangulate all rectangles. So all rectangles are comprised of two triangles. I'm going to merge those two triangles, and then we'll do the same thing for the back. So you got this triangle, and then merge, and then the same thing for the bottom. If we can see it, we can go inside of it. Grab this triangle and this triangle and merge. And then I can select all of those triangles by disabling the selection filter for edges and nodes. And then select all the faces and then I'll hit recalculate normals, and then accept. So now if I turn my structure back on, wherever that's at, you can see the issue still persists on this mesh, where there's this like darkening around the edges, because the top, the front, and the back are all connected into one polygroup. So let's turn our structure building back off. So the back, top, and front are connected as one polygroup on this particular piece of the mesh. But here I separate it. So now you see there's a harsh line here where I separated the polygroups. There's a top polygroup, a front polygroup, and I keep all those faces connected so that it looks more smooth shaded. There's now a bottom polygroup. So we're going to turn this off also. And then there's a back polygroup. I need to redo this for every single one of my pieces of trim, which is a tedious project or process. But once it's done, you get this more accurate shading and reaction to lighting, as you can see on the left side here, where it has that harsh line right at the edge on the outside and the harsh line right up against the wall, versus this weird like darkening that's happening here. So it's treating it like it's a big rounded piece of trim. And last problem that was hard to figure out was this face. I might need to go and like redesign the entire structure, but this little face that's creeping up behind the trim is something's wrong with the UV projection there. But more things to figure out. As you can see, if I turn that trim off, this is how the doors are separated. It's got like just a tiny amount of separation. So when I turn that trim back on, deselect it, you can see that there's trim outside of the door. There's this little bit piece of trim on the inside. Let's turn the doors off. And there's trim on the other side. I've really got to go in there and redo all of my polygroups for all of these assets, because I learned a harsh lesson that you can't just merge all the polygroups. As for the structure, anywhere that there's a vent, I've added a hole with the black material inside of it to simulate the nothingness. So you can see these little holes in here that are kind of cut into the ceiling where all the vents are. That way, when you look through a vent, it'll appear that you can not see anything. Everything is meticulously designed from scratch. I literally took a vent out of the ceiling and measured everything, and then designed it in SketchUp and gave it as much detail as I could. Same thing with the lights. I measured them. Ceiling fan, I measured it. It's basically 2 meshes, and that's in a blueprint as well. The animation of these fans are independent of each other.
I'm the Warax, guardian of the forest.
A little faster here.
I speak.
Not moving there. I think this one's about the same speed. And then this one is just moving very slowly. Now I love how the light from the TV is the fan blades are reacting to the light from the TV, as well as the top of our table out here. Lots of details. Lots of details. I even go down as far as to add a little bit of a transparency, like a alpha material to my chairs, so that if I were to render this in the path tracing, you could still kind of see through the chairs as you would in real life. So it took a lot of, it's not like we're just ripping assets off the internet. There's a lot of hard work that goes into setting these things up for the type of scene that I want anyways, down to adding real geometry to this wood, which is the same as what's in the garage. Let's turn off the structure, and you might be able to see that a little more clearly. So you can see those.
Why do people like to kill something like that?
In real life or in the game?
In the game?
Because I don't know. It's a bad habit. You're not doing that though, are you?
No.
Okay.
Because this is this paint, and I don't have something like that. A gun.
Okay. So lots of detail that I added to this. I brought in some meshes that had like 20,000 pieces, screws and everything, all individual. Grabbed all the things that had the same material applied to it and switched that material to my own master, to be parented to my own master material, and created my own material instances for every mesh. And then merged those meshes based on their material, and then went back and merged all the non-translucent materials together and the non-emissive materials together. So for this golf cart, you have the golf cart itself, and then you have all the emissive pieces, which are the tail lights and the front light. And then you have, I think with emissive, I also merged glass with emissive, because some emissive materials are also have transparency. So I put emissives and glass together on one mesh. So now this is two meshes, and let's say if it's 5 materials, multiply that by, let's say 4 at the most. So that's 20 draw calls for 5 materials, because each material has about 4 textures. And then the 2 meshes would make for 22 draw calls for, of course, and the material instances. So about 27 draw calls for this one golf cart, versus initially this golf cart was about 270. So I took it from 270 draw calls to 27. Same thing with this golf bag. It was the same, more than 150 different individual meshes that I found each material and replaced everything that was red to share the same material, everything that was white to share the same material, everything that was black to share the same material. And then I merged the whole thing, since there's no transparency on this. Right. So took it down to, let's say 15, about less than 20 draw calls from, hey Zeppelin, go play a different game if they're doing that and you don't like it. I don't need you complaining. All right, nothing has changed. Okay, buddy? Anything that I do keep separate, like for example, this toilet blueprint, if I double click on it, I have the pivot of the toilet seat to be set to a certain place. And it doesn't appear that there's anything designed in here that would be useful, but I'm going to go and find a nice toilet model that has all the details, so that when I do decide that I want to make this interactable, it's very easy for me to go into that blueprint and add my interaction to it. So I keep some meshes separated. I don't merge everything because I don't want to deal with bones and weight painting. I just want to be able to add a pivot to a particular mesh and then set up constraints with physics for those meshes. A cool way that I preview this scene sometimes is I will hide from the game the structure. So let's see, what is this? This light blocking box, main structure. Let's take those two and set them to be hidden. And then turn on the brick that surrounds it. And I would normally set this to like a night mode, but this gives me a very sim-like experience to where I can, especially at night. So this time of day right now is set to, let's see, ultra dynamic sky, 1766.5. Let's set it to be nighttime. And this gives it a very sim-like look. So if I hit simulate, if I had some animated characters walking around the scene and some AI, like this would basically be another sim. But I like how this looks at night.
Yeah, I can show you. But that's not how it
Almost feels like a condo, like 100-year-old condo
I got one
with high ceilings.
for the cutest little guy I ever saw.
Watch this. Just watch. Poetry in motion is what they call that. He is so creative with the basketball. So many times that is the...
So I want there to be an option in here, which I can probably very easily do, is to bless you. I don't know. Maybe I can hide the entire blueprint of walls and doors.
Here you go, beanpole.
Pull him right out. Just gonna come right back in.
But I absolutely love how this looks when you hide on the walls. Gives you like a skeletal, I don't even know what you call it, X-ray vision of the whole scene. Now, once I go and add the details of like the AC here and the hot water heater here, as well as stage this with a bunch of stuff, vacuums, brooms, random stuff that I would normally have in this little closet under the stairs. And then the game room, this is the board game room, shelves and like Dungeons and Dragons, all the board games are in here, and there's supposed to be a large board game table here. This is the playroom, whole bunch of train toys and stuff that would be in here. This is the guest bedroom. We used to have this set up to where there's a projector on this wall. And
From the seat of his
Zeppelin's
pants,
room,
throws a perfect lob to Santos.
the room we're in now.
Go back door. We're talking about backdoor cuts. We didn't throw.
Got to add his computer there. It would be nice to have the time to be able to do the second floor, which is 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2-car garage, living area, kitchen, dining room, laundry room, etc. And then the 3rd floor would be 2 bedrooms, a small game room, like an entertainment center room, and another 2 bathrooms. I would love to be able to do the whole place, but that would be maybe months worth of work. I mean, the figuring out how to do this took quite a bit of time, but it has set me up to be able to now take on a new project and seamlessly integrate new features. So, you know, aside from all of what I've shared, and then this is the laundry room, aside from all of what I've shared in this stream, the last thing that I would want to do is enable the changing of materials for things like countertops, cabinet doors, floors. All right, so you can get a different look and feel just by walking through the place. You can click on anything, everything, and change it around, and then be able to release that as a demo and kind of as like a portfolio item to showcase, hey, these are the interactions. I'm less on the architectural visualization side where we're focused on steels and heavily doctored, polished video renders, and more on the interactive side where we're focused on real-time interactability, lumen lighting, and the user experience. And that's what's extremely fun for me. Like, that's what gets me excited. So I think maybe later I'll off stream fix all of my baseboards and trim. That is a task heavy project. And then I'm going to separate my ceiling material to have something that's less drywall and more flat. I also want to add a little emissive to the smoke detector. The TV, when it's in off mode, I want a little light to shine from under here like my actual Samsung TV does. What was the other thing? Little emissives on the computer monitors, as well as a keyboard, mouse, and a bunch of other staging to do here. But I've gotten this project basically to its most near final state structurally. Now it's just staging at a little bit of imperfections, going in and fixing some blueprints and making sure these blueprints can be duplicated and migrated over to other projects easily.
No.
You died?
Yeah.
How?
Wait, I'm the Lorax, guardian of the forest.
So this is a good, you know, exposure to where at night it's not too dark. But you can go outside of the scene and still see a lot of detail. Gotta fix my glass materials or the plastic material on the lights. Moonlight's not so bright tonight. And just like that, I'm very satisfied with what this project looks like. I think I do want to copy that. I want to try something real quick, and I think this would be really cool. This would be really cool. I'm going to grab this light switch. Is that his mouth?
Yeah.
I'm going to grab this light switch, copy it over, let's say to here. Rotate it. Just in a random place. Hit play. Actually, before I do that, I also want to copy over this temporarily. Let's see how close these two are to each other. Doesn't really matter the orientation. Let me hit play.
I'm the Lorax. Guardian.
My bad. I want to do one or two more. Let's grab this one, copy it, right click, edit, paste here. This one, I think, copy it. Paste here. This one. I think I did that one already. We're gonna do this one. No, you're gonna have some pizza or something first.
I want pizza.
Okay, give me a moment. Let me finish this stream and I got you. Edit, paste here. What game are you playing right now?
Look.
He's just riding. What is he, a banana? What is that?
Duck.
A duck? Ah, so you're Milo.
And not mine.
Just a random duck.
No, I'm saying not two duck. I'm saying on the duck.
Gotcha. All right, this would be a fun little light playground. So what I can do is
I'm the Lorax.
we're gonna go out.
Guardian of the forest. I speak for.
I think I got a collision happening at the bottom of this. Oh, and look at the detail in this. Oh, I love the detail that I added into this transition threshold. But we're going to walk out here to the playground. And I'm going to turn around. I'm going to press E. Wait, is this going to work? Is this going to work? Yeah. Although I need to make them a little higher. Let's see, G. Something's missing. I didn't grab the mesh. I didn't grab the bounding box. So let's copy that. Right click, edit, paste here. And let's rotate it. Or move it back this way. And we're going to grab all these lights and move them up and over. Play.
I'm the Lorax. Guardian of the forest.
Stars are looking a little big. All right, I need to make it a little bit higher. So let's move it all up to here. And let's grab my player pawn. Turn it around.
Alexa, play
Not yet. No, 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 no. I'm live streaming. My mic is on. Alexa, turn it off. Give me a second, okay? You can as soon as I'm done, all right? You gonna play Bad Romance? All right, now let's close the garage. Very cool. Turn off all the lights. Open the garage. Oh. I forgot if I clicked that, I was going to interact with it. I need to add an emissive to that car, to that golf cart. Turn the lights back on. So as you can see, some of these lights show an emissive on the bottom when you turn them on.
Look, I could fly.
Oh man, this is so cool.
I could fly.
Yeah, buddy?
I could fly.
What's this one go to? Light one fix. It must be the closet in the bedroom, which the door is closed. Let me go open that door. So really, the possibilities of this are like tremendously endless. However you want to set up a player's experience and constraints, you know, it's just very easy to create something that's insanely interesting. So one of these is the garage. Not sure which one. I can kind of see the bedroom closet. It's like you're playing with smart switches on a phone. See, bedroom. Ah, there it is. Porch light. Living room. Garage. Closet. And this is all the lights. Pretty accurate. When there's light on outside of a window and you're looking into a dark room, it's usually very hard to see what's in there. Like it's almost pitch black. And that's what we're going for, is realistic lighting. I just need to add a run animation to my character. Well, I think that's all that I have for this. One thing I'm going to probably try to code this week is a slider that lets me change the brightness of lights or the time of day, or both. But I'm going to create a panel of switches, or this actually would be so cool, an electrical box that sits outside of the house inside of a thing that lets you turn the lights individually per room on and off, and then the lights to the house, and then control the time of day. That is a great idea. That would be a really cool experience. I would love to hear, though, from anybody that watches this now or in the future. What should I add to this project? What should I change about this project? Yeah, what kind of cool interactions could I do that I might not have thought about? In my mind right now, it's like appliances, electronics devices, radios, for example. I don't know if I'll be able to get as far as doing a replicated version of this to where two people can be here in the same time. But two-way communication would be kind of cool. I want to add a checkbox or a switch that you can switch as a character in the game to change the game time of day from local to what's, your computer is set to, as well as have the weather and the ultra dynamic sky and ultra dynamic weather react to real data that's coming from your computer's location, and be able to switch that on and off to where you can have like your in-game time and have it be independent of the real world. Right now, all the clocks are set to real world, but I should be able to disable that, and it will, if I add a save state, it can pick up from the last time that you like closed the game. I want to add interactable windows, a basketball hoop, character animations so you can lay down in the bed, sit down in chairs, actually grab things with your hand. But before I ever get to that point, I want to release this project with as many interactable features as I can. And this is as far as I've gotten. It's about a month and a half of work. All blueprints. Hope y'all enjoyed this stream. I'm going to go work on a couple of other projects, and I might see you again later.
Give me that. No, I'm gonna eat this, but I am highly offended by it. Beanpole.
Pull him right out. Just gonna run right back in.
It's a few hundred miles. Based on the railways, everything that Ayers told us, it's gotta be worth. Follow the roads where we can. We can make it back within a week.
It took us 6 months to get here. We got over 100 kids here now. We can't just hang out here forever after.
I do. It's been a few years, but I've been there. The last city. That's what we can call it. It was our home base of operations. If that city is still standing, that's the last place you want to live. That's the lion's den.
I can't believe no one in this family wants to sing. Get every feels, yeah.
Okay.